I call to order this June 13th, 2022 Henderson County Board of Public Education Board meeting. Would all rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. All right, first thing we're going to do today is approve the agenda. I would like to amend the agenda as presented, and I would like to add an AA. It's going to be first thing on new business, Dr. Bryant, and that's going to be a discussion around surveys. Do I have a second for the amended agenda approval? I move. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Recognition, Dr. John Bryant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Craven and members of the board. It is Director of the Year. Can we give him a round of applause, please? That's right. And that, again, when we talk about national, we are talking about the entire United States. There is an individual that gets recognized in this way, and this award recognizes the extraordinary contributions of a child nutrition director who manages effectively, serves the school meal program, and creates healthy and appetizing meals for students. And if I could speak just about what Mr. Rolfe's leadership has meant to our program and to the child nutrition department for just a few minutes. Mr. Rolfe has been the type of leader that has motivated his staff to be better servants to the children under our care. He's the type of person who's always reminding us that it's about each and every child who child nutrition cares for is that work. He has been so critically important to our summer feeding program, to our Meals on the Bus program, to the expansion of our services, to creating opportunities that engage and serve and support school families. But he was also instrumental in those 2 years where we were serving students with great uncertainty. And one of the very first things that we did when the pandemic began was start to problem solve how we made sure that food scarcity was not going to be a gap for our children. And it was Mr. Rolfe's leadership along with his team and the extraordinary men and women who are part of our child nutrition department that did that. And so I know he would say that this award in many respects is an award for his entire department, but it is an award for an individual who says, our job is to care for kids and to make sure that our food service program does that. And I am so very proud to say in my time with Administrative Services that I got to work alongside Mr. Rolfe and learn and see what that leadership looks like on a daily basis. And for him to be recognized as the National Child Nutrition Director of the Year, it's not just an honor for our school system, for his entire team, but just a credit to how important child nutrition programming is each and every day in communities like ours. And I believe this fact is correct. We've done a little bit of fact checking here. But when you think of the national award recognition, again, these are individuals across every school system in every state. I believe Mr. Rolfe is the only individual from the state of North Carolina to ever have been recognized for this award. So one more time, I'm going to ask him to come up here because I'm going to shake his hand. Let's all say congratulations to Mr. Robert Rolfe. Mr. Craven, if I might, I have one more additional recognition that I'd like to offer, and this is actually on behalf of 4 school communities. We have 4 very special school communities that we want to recognize today, and that is, as part of our Leader in Me program, as you know, this initiative and this framework serving our students and their leadership and their growth across our school system, each year and through an annual process and then a 3-year process, schools have an opportunity to earn what's called Lighthouse designation. And Lighthouse designation essentially is that top tier of implementation and leadership. And we now have 4 schools in our system that are Lighthouse designees. Dana Elementary School, Sugarloaf Elementary School, and now, for the first time, Apple Valley Middle School and North Henderson High School. And so there's going to be more information to come on that front. But when we talk about the successful completion of a school year, that Lighthouse designation puts them in that top tier and that top percentage. And so we thank the Ed Foundation for the leadership and support of our Leader in Me program, and really celebrate North Henderson, Apple Valley, Sugarloaf, and Dana for that Lighthouse designation. And so I'd like to give them a round of applause for that work and that designation. Those are all the recognitions I have, sir.
And thank you, sir. And speaking of the Education Foundation, could Ms. Peggy Marshall come down for a second, please? Thank you. Ms. Marshall.
Yes.
There you go.
So first, as a parent with my children at your school at East Henderson, when you were administrator there, you always were a major advocate for them and helped them navigate some tough times. But you always pushed them to be their best, and you had high expectations for them, and they knew that you cared. Secondly, I've had the opportunity to work with him as a colleague with Henderson County Public Schools, especially in your various roles here at the central office. Again, he's always been an advocate for every child, every family, and every employee of Henderson County. So I thank you for that, because you have always pushed us to be better than our best. I love that quote from you each day, and you helped us to reach our highest potential. Personally, he knows all of our names, our children's names, and he cares. He generally cares how they're doing, and he never fails to ask that. You lead with love and care. And now finally, I've been fortunate to work with you as an educational partner with my work with the Henderson County Education Foundation. And truly, again, he's an advocate for every child in this system and every family and every adult. So we just wanted to honor you tonight for your work for not just the most vulnerable children of Henderson County, but all children, all families, all schools, and all employees. So to thank you, we have a special award to give you. And it says here, presented to Dr. John Bryant, with sincere gratitude for your steadfast leadership, advocacy, and devotion and service to Henderson County Education Foundation and Henderson County Public Schools.
And just to add to that, all the feel-good stuff, that's pretty. I like that. The board, normally when staff retires, we have a plethora of gifts that we can choose from, whether it's a nice clock or a rocking chair. We didn't quite feel that those were quite appropriate for this particular time. And so, being the wordsmith that you are, we decided, and I really want to give a shout out, hopefully she's watching, to Stephanie Alfrey, is really the leader on this, and Miss Molly McGowan Gorsuch really took the lead after Miss Alfrey was gone. We created a book for you. And the book is words of affirmation and just letters from folks around the school system that you mean a whole lot to. And to me personally, being in the trenches with you for the past 2 years, it hasn't been easy. And I know that you've had every single kid and all of your staff members at the forefront of your every decision that you've made, even though they haven't been easy. And I appreciate serving in those trenches with you, and we're going to be a worse school system off without you. I'm glad that you're staying in this community, and it's been an absolute honor and a privilege to work beside you every day. So, Dr. Bryant, we're going to miss you, man, but we'll always be right here for you. So, here's a nice little book. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. Board chair observations, I'm going to defer for this month, so if there's any board member observations this side of the room.
I did. I just want to say something to Dr. Bryant. I wrote it down because you know I cry. I've always believed that a school superintendent is the most difficult job on the planet. Yet instead of burning up in the atmosphere, Dr. Bryant chose to be the brightest star of sunshine in the middle of a 2-year storm. When I lost my dad, I made a journal of all of his words of wisdom, pieces of advice to get me through hardships in my life. I dig into that book quite often lately and remembered something he told me quite often. Fear is a reaction, courage is a decision. I've thought of those words so many times over the past 2 years watching you lead. It has always amazed me that every decision you've made has been based on courage, with the safety of our students and the love of our students and staff at the forefront. So thank you.
Beautiful. Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Case.
Students. A lot of our teams have done great things, and we had a young man in our county who was chosen. I'm so jealous because I taught history. He was chosen to go to D-Day to play drums with a group that was set up, and then he was going to Paris and going to Washington, D.C. His name was Houston. The last name was Houston, and I just think that's pretty awesome that he's representing Henderson County and with the whole, with the whole world, really. So anyway.
I'm good.
Okay. Ms. Revis, Dr. Revis?
Thank you. I just wanted to say to Dr. Bryant, John, we worked together at many different levels when you were principal and then when you moved to the central office. And I just want to say how much I appreciate always when I'm discussing things with you and we may not see eye to eye, I always know that you are going to treat me and the issue with utmost respect and sincerity. You are a true gentleman in every sense of the word, always holding children first and foremost, and always trying to let that guide your decision and lead you through some very difficult times. I was so sad to hear that you are moving on from us, and I wish you well, my friend, but we are going to sorely miss you. Godspeed.
Thank you, Dr. Revis.
All right. We're going to be moving on. Public comments. So we're going to be giving you 3 minutes for public comments, and there's the timer. My first public comment of the day is going to be Mr. Cliff Dodson. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Cliff Dodson. I served as superintendent for 24 years. And Dr. Brown, I used to think it was really hard on this end. It's not so easy from this end. I'm finding out tonight. In fact, my first year as superintendent, I was 6'2". So you can see what happens after 24 years.
Good thing you got out then, huh?
When I retired, it was pretty well known in the community that I enjoyed hiking because I hiked the Appalachian Trail, and I just enjoy being out in nature and walking with my golden retriever, and he and I had long conversations. Well, sometimes something happens in organizations and you wish it didn't happen, but it did. And if it did, I think there are two things happen. One, you got to own it, and second, you got to fix it. And that's where we find ourselves here tonight. There was a survey that I'm sure all of you are aware right now that was to be sent out. And the idea behind that survey was to make Muddy Sneakers a better organization by getting feedback from your clients, which was students at the time. Well, unfortunately, on that survey, one of the questions that was asked was the gender question. It was asked to check male, female, or non-binary. That was objected to at the school. It was presented to our executive director. He absolutely agreed it was not age appropriate. It shouldn't be on there, and he immediately removed it. You see that on a lot of adult surveys, but it just shouldn't have been. It was not age appropriate for that child. And that objection, we believe, the board believes, was a legitimate objection. It just simply shouldn't have been there. However, we've worked with you guys and your students for several years, and I believe if you ask your fifth grade teachers, they would say that Muddy Sneakers has been a strong supporter of the curriculum. Our job is to help that teacher provide more and more information. Most elementary school teachers are highly skilled in teaching reading and mathematics, but they don't get a lot of training in the science area. And that's where we have excellent degreed instructors to help support what happens in that classroom. You know, you can look at a centipede in a textbook, but it's a lot different when you see a centipede out in the woods with a little magnifying glass, or when you ask a child, where does your water come from? And they say the faucet. And that gives a beautiful opportunity to say, talk about the water table and what happens if it's a lot of rain or not a lot of rain, how that affects the water table. There's so much to be learned in the woods, and we view ourselves as a support system to enhance that science curriculum for kids to learn more and more about this incredible place that we call Western North Carolina. I think it's really wise to look at the whole picture and say, how much value do we add? Wow, that was fast. I'll just very quickly simply say, there are outdoor expeditions constantly, and the teachers, your fifth grade teachers, always ask for parent volunteers. I'm not asking you to take my word for it or anybody else's word for it. I think it's better for you to see it for yourself. So we certainly would invite you to contact one of your fifth grade teachers and say, next time you have one of those expeditions, I'd like to volunteer and go out and observe. We would be delighted if you did so. Muddy Sneakers had no intentions other than teach fifth grade science. We have no political intentions, no backdoor policies trying to admit it. We just want to teach your kids. And I've been involved as a board member for 11 years, and I've been out in the woods a lot of times with these excellent teachers and really cool kids and seen some wonderful things take place out there. So we would encourage you not to let us make these corrections jointly with you. Fix it and move on and make sure it doesn't happen again, because we certainly don't want the kids to lose the benefit of that wonderful science instruction because something that happened organizationally doesn't happen. And I know, Dr. Bryant, you've had those opportunities too when something happens and you say, gosh, I wish it hadn't happened, but let's fix it and try not to make those same kind of mistakes again. So I'm just asking you to continue to support Muddy Sneakers. We believe it has great value to add to your curriculum. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good luck to you, Dr. Bryant.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Katie Gash.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello and happy summer. I just wanted to say a special adieu to Dr. Bryant, our superintendent. Thank you for being such a voice of reason and compassion. Thank you for reminding us to show grace on all occasions. Thank you for allowing us to speak our hearts, our hurts, our frustrations, our hopes, and yes, our many, many moments of blessings that peeked from behind clouds of gloom. This has been an incredibly tough 2 years, but I know that we are stronger for it. You have gathered us and guided us through. Your administrative team is second to none. And Dr. Fry, I know that you'll be leaving soon as well. We shall greatly miss you. Thank you for your unapologetic focus on issues of equity, making sure that those students and families traditionally marginalized by our education system are indeed centered along with their peers. I'm excited about summer school. That being said, I look forward to the day when teachers are paid what they deserve, but I am encouraged and thankful that we do receive a more fair income over the summer months. So board members, administrators, members of the community, parents, please continue to advocate for us teachers, as I know you will. In a world where so much hatred and callousness, ugliness and impatience is too often spewed too quickly, it is heartening to know that genuine goodness remains, and I believe that genuine goodness remains here in our community. And it is heartening to know that our community loves and supports its public school teachers. even though we may have some changes coming up in our administrative team, I do know that we remain committed to the students of our community and to their families. So just thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gash. Next, we have Ms. Rebecca Moon. Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you to the board for giving me an opportunity to speak. Mostly I just sit back and listen, and I don't really get up here and say a lot. But I was made aware of a survey that was sent to our fifth graders that their parents didn't even know about. I don't have the whole questionnaire, but as the gentleman said, there was a question on there about how do you identify. Although he did not list the fourth one that was asked, identity not listed. I have a fifth grade grandson, and I asked him today, he doesn't go to school here, but I asked him, I said, how do you identify? His first answer was manly. And I said, well, do you identify as a girl or boy? He said, Mimi, I'm a boy. And then I said, and I was so surprised, do you know what non-binary means? And he said, yes, ma'am. And I said, I don't even know what it meant. I went to look it up in Merriam-Webster's dictionary. It's not even in the dictionary. So I had to ask the great wizard, Dr. Google. And so I asked my grandson, what does that mean? He said, well, that's when a boy or girl wants to change gender. But again, he identified two genders, a boy or a girl. And I can only assume that he learned about non-binary from school because I asked his mother, did she know what that meant? And she said no. And I got to hurry really quick. And then I asked him what two genders there were, and he said a boy and a girl. And he said that's so they can create life. And then I said, what did identity not listed mean? And he said, Mimi, that means creatures from another planet. Okay, that is still a 10-year-old that answers these questions. Okay, so I just want to say the Bible, I believe it, from Genesis to Revelation. I don't know how many of you do. I don't know what your faith is, but I do know in Genesis 5:2 it says, male and female he created them, and he blessed them and he called them Adam. He also said he blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that God created male, female, and just so you know, binary means that some people don't identify with any gender. Their gender changes over time. And the Bible does not say that he created female, transgender, gender neutral, non-binary, agender, pangender, queer gender, two-spirit, third gender. None does it say that. Nor does it say he created humans and he didn't know what they were. And so he said that he would let you identify what you want to be. So I think we need to get back to education, not indoctrination. Fifth graders are innocent as by these questions that I just arbitrarily asked my grandson. I looked up muddy sneakers on the internet, and it says what they do. They energize learning through experimental education in an outdoor setting where students, I'm going to talk real quick, connect with the land. In other words, it's with their environment. So this question has no place on this survey, and I asked the board and the administration to please be more aware of what surveys are being sent out to children, and they should be sent to the administration so that you can review these and it just doesn't get sent out. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you. Next up is Ms. Janice Parker. Welcome.
I'm Janice Parker, and promoting gender confusion does nothing to help children. It does great harm to them in our society, and I don't see how it would help Muddy Sneakers be a better organization either. It's not age appropriate for any age. I'm convinced that the use of this survey was not a boo-boo or a mistake that can be forgiven. Rather, Muddy Sneakers is using 2 of the 45 communist goals. Number one, present homosexuality as normal, natural, and healthy. It is not. Number two, get control of the schools, use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. In case you haven't noticed, this gender fluidity thing is our current propaganda that we're having to put up with. I don't know what a woman is. This, as the other lady said, goes against the biblical heritage, culture, and values of Henderson County. And the voters of Henderson County gave you no mandate to change our culture and values. So I'm glad you're thinking about fixing this. However, even without the gender confusion issue, we have the problem of the basic philosophy of this organization. There are plenty of free outdoor education opportunities for kids in Henderson County. We got Home State Forest is excellent. My kids used to love going there. Cradle of Forestry is awesome and first class. And there's other places too. Surely there are better means to teach our kids to become familiar with our unique ecosystems. I stand with the In God We Trust that's on our new courthouse. I stand with the laws of nature and of nature's God that's enshrined in front of our old courthouse. I stand with Jesus Christ and the Bible and the Christian heritage of our county and ask you to break all ties with muddy sneakers on principle and tell everybody why. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up, Bill Miller. Welcome, Mr. Miller.
I just wanted to parrot the last two speakers and say that I'm in agreement with what they've said as a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ and seeing our country turning the way it has been turned. I believe that there's a lot of conservative Bible believers in this facility, in this county, and in this country. I would like to encourage the board to be careful about what you approve for curriculum. I would like to ask that it be more readily accessible to the public, what is being taught the children for accountability, and that the things about gender, I believe it is inappropriate, and it does cause, I think it adds to the confusion for children, and it's harming them as much of the COVID has hurt them, the lockdown, all the stuff that everybody's familiar with. It's been harmful to them. But the mental illness and just sad, it's pitiful to see. So my encouragement would be to try to promote family, biblical family, man, woman, children, like it's always been throughout the world since the creation. And anyway, I would just ask you to consider that and think about what you're doing when you approve curriculum. So that's really all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Next up, we have Miss Crystal Cawley. Welcome, Miss Cawley.
Thank you. And I'd like to say to Dr. Bryant, that I will miss you, and thank you for your leadership. I would also like to say congratulations to Blair Craven, who is on the People's Museum Walk of Fame wall. It's an honor to share space with you on that wall as a community leader. And I'd like to say that the museum, the People's Museum, is a true educational asset here in Hendersonville, North Carolina. So, I am here today to ask the Henderson County Board of Education for consideration to have a special advocacy group, AAPA, available for parents and the right to meet at any school. Effective parent involvement programs for African Americans can aid in increasing academic achievement. I am the co-founder of AAPA along with Indion Jackson. AAPA stands for African American Parent Alliance. The framework will have parents and students leading the group. This group empowers African American parents with advocacy and support, resources that will nurture their children's academic success. Studies have shown that Black parent networks and alliance groups supported by schools and school boards have shown the following positive results. Parents who were not engaged in their children's education declined. Communication with teachers and administration improved tremendously. Truancy and absenteeism went down. Testing scores improved and academic achievements were noted. Disciplinary actions, classroom interruptions, and suspensions also declined. The longevity of Black Parent Network or alliance groups in place at schools have lasted for years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we're going to have Mr. Stan Shelley. Welcome, Mr. Shelley. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm here to speak about Muddy Sneakers, which is it's my understanding, since its very beginning, has been an excellent outdoor education program, but in my opinion, has completely lost its way. We know the question that was asked on the survey about gender. I cannot, in my wildest imagination, imagine how any responsible adult would ask a 5th grader about whether they are a gender, boy, girl, non-binary. What adult would ask a 5th grader that question? That is totally irresponsible. Also, they did it without the knowledge or permission of the parents. That it's beyond my understanding. I think it's offensive to such a high degree that I recommend we break ties completely with Muddy Sneakers. There are, outdoor education is important. We can look for alternatives. Maybe we join with other counties and develop our own outdoor education. But we obviously cannot depend on this organization who has no moral compass to be part of that education. I would not trust a 5th grader to go into the woods with somebody from Muddy Sneakers, not knowing what conversation is going to take place and knowing how very irresponsible they are about those conversations. So I have, in the last week, spoken at length with Chuck McGrady, who was the founder of Muddy Sneakers. And I think it was a very good organization when he founded it. And Chuck has mentioned the possibility of perhaps we can have a meeting to discuss this and everybody have time to really express the foundation for their beliefs in meetings and so forth. And Chuck and I have we've been friends a long time, and the vast majority of time over the years we've agreed, and the few times we've disagreed with total civility. So if we had such a meeting, I would just really want to insist that Chuck be part of that meeting, because I know that I can dialogue with him with civility. But I really, my emphasis is the children and the parents. The parents have rights, and those rights were just trampled on, completely trampled on. I believe if you asked every parent of a 5th grader in this county how they felt about their child being asked that question, I think they would overwhelmingly object. And that suggests to me that we need to break ties with Muddy Sneakers. But if we need to have a meeting to share all of our opinions, I'm open to that too. And finally, I offer my congratulations to Dr. Bryant. He's going up the ladder, so he won't have muddy sneakers, he'll have muddy dress shoes.
Thank you, Mr. Shelley. Next is Jeff, I believe it's G. I'm not sure what the last name is. Okay, sorry.
All right. Not a comment.
Well, I couldn't read it. I'm sorry. I can't read my own handwriting.
It's okay. Good evening. My name's Jeff Grow. I own a condo, live in Fletcher, have some property in Zirconia. I don't have kids in the school system any longer, but I do pay property taxes. It's the first time at a school board meeting, may not be my last. Just to be kind of clear, I'm part of what I feel is a silent majority that are fed up, now becoming more politically active to defeat the rise of ideological Marxism in all its forms. You know, whether it's environmental justice, social justice, economic justice, or fill-in-the-blank justice, has become part of our woke culture. It's just Marxism dressed up in different words. And while many of us have been asleep, those Marxist philosophies have infiltrated our education system. Schools are not focusing on education like it was when I was growing up. They're being used to push a social agenda, and that's Marxism 101. Because many of us are now become aware that school systems are pushing these social agendas, anything that happens, rightly or wrongly, is going to be viewed through that lens. This is the case, in my opinion, with the survey sent to the kids who participated in Money Sneakers programs, an organization that the school board is associated with. As I understand, the survey was sent to fifth graders without the parents' knowledge, and that is especially unacceptable to me. They asked the kids, as we've already heard, identified as a boy, a girl, or non-binary. It's just not an appropriate question, in my opinion. This is a discussion for the parents to have with their kids. It is not the responsibility of the schools or organizations like Money Sneakers to engage in this. It's nonsense that's got to stop. It's another example, in my opinion, of the schools and these kinds of organizations usurping the role of parents. It's ultimately driven by academic elites in the education world who think they are superior to parents. It's an attack on kids and the family structure. Breaking down the family structure is a key to Marxist ideology. Money Sneakers apparently does much good. Maybe this was a mistake, but the fact is the survey has been sent and irreparable damage done to the kids. Did this board know about the question but allowed it, or were you not aware of it? Either way, that's a problem as far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to be watching on how you spend my money. Are you going to push a social agenda, or are you going to stick to the mission to educate the kids? I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I know you're all volunteers. I'm on a volunteer board as well. I appreciate your service to the community. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Next, we have Susan King. Welcome, Ms. King.
Well, I don't have children in the school system, but I am a school teacher. I'm retired now. And I agree with the people that have talked before me. And what concerns me is the Muddy Sneakers has been infiltrated. It sounds like it started out as a good thing, which good things are everywhere. But the agendas that we're facing, we're seeing it everywhere. That wokeism has hit Hendersonville. It has infiltrated our public school system, and this is the proof. We have been infiltrated. They have duped all of you here. You are all good people. You all here, I don't think anybody here agrees with this or would go along with it or would be part of it. And I suspect that none of you knew about it. I would like to know if you did or not, or whether it was an approved thing or not. But I think the big thing we need to face here is that we need to admit that we've been infiltrated by a well-meaning NGO, a nonprofit, offering us a free service. And we're taking advantage of that free service, and we don't want to let it go. But we're doing it, that's the agenda. The agenda is repeated over and over and over again. Offer money, offer free services, say the right words, appear to be the way you need to appear to be, and get yourself into the good graces, and then rely on the public to remain silent. Rely on the public to remain silent. Rely on the school children not to say anything. Rely on the parents not to know about it or to be busy and not to show up. But the ones of us who have showed up and that are aware of it are now part of the deception if we allow it to continue. I think if you allow Muddy Sneakers to continue, you are part of their deception, because now it's been revealed to all of us that they have infiltrated Henderson County public school system. Their ideology is wrong. It wasn't just one person in that group that wrote that survey. Multiple people were involved in that group, surveying, attesting to the survey, writing the survey, publishing the survey, sending the survey out, and they agreed not to let anyone know about it in advance. They agreed not to let you know about it, and that's something that cannot be fixed. So I would agree with the press people that we can't trust Muddy Sneakers. They need to be dealt with, and that we need to find another resource. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, and keep your hearts and minds at least open. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King. Next, we have Kathy Johnson. Welcome, Ms. Johnson.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Johnson. I'm a 30-year resident of Henderson County. My kids did go through the school system here. I'm here today because I'm very troubled by this end-of-the-year survey sent out by Muddy Sneakers. I'm sure I'm going to repeat some of the points already made, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to read what I've written. I strongly believe, as do the majority of my friends and associates, that questions about a child's gender preference has no place in the teaching of outdoor education. While I have great sympathy for anyone suffering from gender dysphoria, at the same time, I believe that the alarming rise in gender dysphoria is at least partially due to the subject of gender identity being introduced into children who would otherwise not even be aware of this condition. And I certainly wasn't when I was a child. I believe that this survey is a thinly veiled effort to introduce transgenderism to our kids. It's planting unnecessary seeds of doubt and confusion into a child's mind. And I was an outdoor educator myself. I majored in environmental studies, taught it in many different settings. But in summary, I believe that outdoor educators should stick to the teaching of outdoor ed and leave human sexuality topics to the parents. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Reverend John Hobbs. Welcome, sir. Yeah.
Henderson County Board of Public Education members. I am the Reverend John Hobbs, an ordained United Church of Christ minister who lives in Henderson County and have grandchildren enrolled within the public schools here. I feel that with the current political climate, there is an assault happening on LGBT youth and their families, often resulting in the suppression of the right to be affirmed and included for who they are. I feel it is time to speak to you publicly about my concern. June is Pride Month, a month when the lives of LGBTQ people are celebrated for their contributions to our community and are affirmed as an important component of the diversity within humanity. It is often the case that LGBT youth find a sense of belonging during this month in an otherwise isolated life. Pride is celebrated in many ways, and yes, even in church services across this country. It is a month when the youth can see others like themselves. Their feelings of isolation, which can produce great mental and emotional stress, lessens a tiny bit for them. As a Christian minister, I would urge the Henderson County Board of Public Education to protect the acknowledgement of Pride Month and its symbols, because school may be the only place where a young LGBT individual can truly feel affirmed for who they are. On the Henderson County School website, it states, and I quote, "We are committed to providing all students the opportunity to learn and encourage the success in a safe environment. We honor the individual and nurture the potential of all children. One way to ensure school can be a safe and encouraging space is through the acknowledgement and affirming of LGBT youth and their families." And some people might say that acknowledging pride is an offense to their religious views, and that any pride symbol in the classroom are infringing on their religious beliefs. Well, I would argue the same for me. In my religious views, if acknowledgement of pride is suppressed and LGBT people are not affirmed, then my religious views have been offended. Have they not? It is my commitment that all people of the world and all of our diversity are created to be celebrated, encouraged, and affirmed for who they are, which includes affirming their sexual orientation and gender expression. I saw a quote the other day that states, "Having one accepting adult in their life can lower an LGBT youth's risk of attempting suicide by 40%. Be that adult." Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. And last but not least, Mr. Chuck McGrady. Welcome, sir.
Glad to be here. Although not expected to be here. I thank you for the time. As I think everybody knows, but I'm a former county commissioner, I'm a former legislator, I'm a former this and that. And for the discussion today, I'm one of the founders of Muddy Sneakers. There were three of us, actually, that got together, two from Henderson County and one from Transylvania County, and sat on the front porch and came up with the idea that we needed to try to reach some youth that might better be reached by getting them outdoors in their backyards. It's amazing. As you know, I'm a summer camp director, and one of the other folks, founders, were a summer camp director. And the idea was that we saw every year kids come from around the country and around the world right here, and yet our own kids don't often know what's right down the road. And so the idea was to put together a program, build it around the curriculum that is given to us by the state, and teach science and math and STEM generally out in the field. And so this is a program that started here in Henderson County and in Transylvania County from its very beginnings. And it's grown from here. And why it's important to me is I hate to see that sort of resource lost to the very kids it was designed to help. Now, Stan Shelley and I are friends. Some people might be surprised to find that out, but we've really worked together. He found out I was a lot more conservative than he thought I was, if you read the newspapers at the time. And frankly, when I called Stan, when this thing blew up, he might have been surprised to find out I agreed with him. That is, if my two kids who graduated from Hendersonville High not that long ago had been in 5th grade and had gotten this survey, I would have been coming to talk to the Board of Education because I think it's wrong. I do not think it's appropriate for 5th graders to be filling in this survey. I am a longtime summer camp director with a lot of kids entrusted to me every year, and this was wrong. But the solution isn't killing off a program that is really valuable. And it's nice and it's easy to say you could replace the program with some other outdoor program. This isn't that program. This is a program that's built around the curriculum that you gave us. Gender identity is no part of the curriculum. There's nothing to fear here. The organization is going to have to earn your trust back, but I would ask you to be supportive of the organization. It's been corrected, and it won't happen again. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right. Next up, we have the consent agenda. And I did forget on our agenda approval, we need to voice vote since we have Dr. Revis joining us remotely. So consent agenda.
Mr. Craven, before
Yeah.
we start there, can that be the consent agenda as presented and amended, please?
As presented and amended. I'll take a motion. I'll make the motion. I move that the consent agenda is approved.
Second.
Mrs. Caskey, yes or no? Put your mics on, please.
Yes.
guys. Jay Egoff, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Bridges? And Dr. Revis?
Yes.
All right, consent agenda's approved.
Do we have to vote?
We didn't have to, but since we amended it
Yeah,
there, we needed to vote on it here,
okay.
right?
No, I mean, like, do you and I have to do a voice vote?
I don't know.
Let's do it just to be,
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I'm a yes.
And I'm a yes as well. 7-0. All right, moving on, we have no old business. We're going to move on to new business, and this is where we added some new language here around surveys. So surveys, surveys. So on top of everything else that's happened over the past, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, something like that, surveys seem to be one of those things that we can't seem to avoid. Most surveys are well-intentioned, but it seems like we are missing the boat here on some of these surveys, from Panorama, the Mighty Sneaker Survey, and things of that nature. And I don't necessarily believe that I or this board should be the survey police. I do believe that's the administration's job, but I think we need to put some more guidelines and guardrails on the survey stuff so that when and if these things ever come about again and they don't follow policy 4720, would you mind emailing that out?
We have it.
You've got it? Okay, he emailed that out to all of you, and you guys can see what our current policy states. It's pretty explicit, you know? We're not supposed to be sending things out without parent consent, right? Especially DPI surveys and things of that nature. But somehow, some way, they seem to sneak in. And so I don't know what the answer is. I don't have a magical wand right now or really an answer on what that is, because I do believe that some of the survey information does provide relevant information back to make your program better. But it doesn't take but one misfire to screw everything up. And it seems like we're misfiring a lot, right? And so I'd like to have a discussion with this board on what those guardrails should be. We've got a pretty well spelled out policy here, but there's no, it's like I tell my kids, don't touch that, leave that alone, leave that alone. Well, then there's a consequence that has to happen once they touch it again. And I think there has to be something that has to come about, because this is not the first time we've dealt with a survey, is it, Mr. Egoff? But I would like for it to be the last time.
We got other things to do.
We do. While I'm on this board, I would like for this to be the last time that I hear about a survey becoming an issue. And that's really a call to you folks. And talking to your principals, and your principals talking to your APs, and your APs talking to your teachers, and so on and so forth. And really reiterating what this board expects of them, especially as it pertains to this policy and to surveys. And I don't know what the answer is right now. I expect you guys to figure it out for us.
Suggestion.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, ask.
Okay, and I don't know this, but I think I do. But didn't and I don't mean to stir this up again, but we need to figure this out and then move on. But didn't Panorama bring us a set of questions, and we reviewed them and said, okay, and then they submitted those questions as well as some other questions that we did not approve?
Yeah, they essentially, the leadership team approved a subset of questions,
And they took
did
out
not-
questions
they-
as well.
Yeah, they did not send that survey. They sent a completely separate survey.
Okay, so but the survey came from Panorama.
It did.
Okay, and then for the muddy sneakers, how was that survey administered?
So that survey did not go through an administrative approval. Several people have asked that question about whether or not it was reviewed by the board or the administration. The answer to that was no. It was not approved and reviewed the way the Panorama survey was. And then an unapproved
Was it sent to
survey was-
principals and principals
It was
sent it?
distributed directly to the schools, yes, sir. And so
So
I
it
think-
was sent from Muddy Sne I don't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry. But it was sent from Muddy Sneakers to principals,
Fifth grade teachers themselves, right?
teachers or principals?
My understanding is that it was sent directly to the teachers.
Yeah, it was because they have the fifth grade teachers there. They've got their emails because that's who they're working with.
Okay, so the principals were bypassed and the admin was bypassed, and it was sent directly from Muddy Sneakers to the teachers.
Am I right? Are we right about that? Okay.
And so just as an example, and just to affirm what Mr. Craven's saying, and certainly open to the discussion of the board here, we recognize that every single survey that a student would have administration, or participate in has to be approved and reviewed by the school district. And even the Department of Public Instruction has a habit of sending surveys to students without our approval. Even when we say, no, we are not going to participate, our very own North Carolina Department of Public Instruction has a habit of sending those surveys directly to teachers and asking for the administration. And so when we talk about partner agencies or a proper approval, like through Panorama, where we actually reviewed, made sure that it was appropriate, and then the vendor misadministered what that is, I think to Mr. Craven's point, we have a space where additional training for every member of our staff is paramount. And I think it's Mrs. Case who wisely says this. How do we make sure that that information has been given to every single individual who works in our school system? All roughly 2,000 of them. So every individual knows that. And as you've even heard people voice, that every single survey would be publicly available for parents and families to have an opportunity to review, because we are about transparency. And it's moments like these that make people question that transparency. So I think it's critically important that there is training and training opportunities for our staff and for our community and for all partner agencies and vendors and even agencies to understand that no administration of a survey should exist without approval, review, and that that's designated in a very clear fashion, because it is troubling to the administration when questions are even asked that says, did the board know about this? Did the administration, who signed off on this? I imagine a world where it's very clear who signed off on it. If you're asking what it should look like on July 1st, I might argue you should see my signature on it in that way that says, no, this has been reviewed at the district level for whatever the content is and otherwise. And I think Mr. Craven's point is a really important one, is historically, for decades, surveys had been administered in a lot of very appropriate and well-intended and meaningful ways. And when that appropriateness is not met, we need to make sure that we have guardrails, safeties in place that allow us to address those type of things, whether you're the Department of Public Instruction, or you're a partner agency, or you're a fifth grade teacher, or you're a ninth grade teacher, or what. All of those elements need to be in place for us. And so when we talk about that, I would ask for the board's direction and support to really draft some tangible fail-safes that exist in that way, that can be presented very publicly to this Board of Education to ensure that they represent that intent.
Well, I have an idea, but I think Ms. Amy Lynn has a question.
So I have talked to so many people on the phone about this for the last 2 weeks, and I've done a lot of thinking about this. I believe that as a school district, we need to have a memorandum of understanding or a contract with every single person that we work with the Hope Coalition that comes in and teaches about drug abuse and how to not do that, with the YMCA, Safety Around Water, with Muddy Sneakers, with all of them, that says you will not send surveys directly to principals or teachers. It has to come through the administration. and they sign the memorandum of understanding, and we sign it, and so it's clear to our partners that that it has to be approved by.
I think what we could do on that instead of the MOU is add the language to the contracts, because we
Yeah.
have contracts with everybody.
Yeah, if it's a contract or a
And
memorandum of
so
understanding.
what I would like to have you guys do is get with our attorneys and talk about those contracts and where we can, and have that language in all of those so we don't have those mistakes happen again. I'm tired of hearing about surveys.
I mean, that's kind
I
of.
think just to affirm what you heard from Mrs. Holt, we have contracts with partner agencies and vendors who we, not sure where that's coming from.
Probably the beach.
That could be. Could be Cherry Grove, Dr. Revis, yes. The contracts, of course, are when we have a partner agency and there's some transaction involving money, but we have a number of them that are simply memorandums of understanding. So we
Whatever
want
that needs to look like.
Yes, sir.
And then it needs to filter down, right? So when we have our PD days out at Blue Ridge, you know, that's the next one we hammer down on our administrators, like, listen. And then if we have an organization that bypasses our protocols, then they won't be in our schools. It's pretty simple, right? But I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think Muddy Sneakers is a great organization. I think that you folks are fifth grade teachers with a lot of that the learning, And I really appreciate everything that Mr. McGrady has done to bring that to this county, because it is a differentiator. I think it's a great program, but I'm tired of dealing with surveys. I'm sick of it.
And it's not an issue of just one organization.
It just keeps going.
It is, I mean, this is the third one that I know of this year that was an inappropriate survey that's gone out to our students.
Well, I think surveys, every company is so survey happy these days. I pay my bill, I get a survey. How was your experience? It's horrible. I'm tired of surveys. Like, literally, you get surveys for everything, but this is different. We need to have some tighter programs. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I agree with what y'all are saying about survey. I'm coming at this from a different angle. Bernie, how much do we pay out of our budget for Muddy Sneakers? Do you know that?
25,000.
Yeah, that is correct.
25,000?
Yep.
Okay, and do the schools have to pay any money for it?
Not that I'm aware of that they've paid any. It's all
Okay.
district money.
And so I'm coming from the area of being a former teacher. You know, these kids go for 6 days to study science. And what are we doing to math and especially to reading during that time when they're out of the classroom and they've missed 6 days? And then we have another program, which is also a good program with the outdoor ed, and that's for fifth graders too. And that's could be 8 days of kids out of English or reading and math. And there may be some math included in the Muddy Sneakers, but especially out of reading. There is nothing, I don't think, and as a history teacher, I hate saying this, but there's nothing better than a kid to be able to read when they get to the high school. And they have to read for the testing, they have to read for everything. And it really bothers me that we are putting these kids out of their reading and their math and the teachers out of that for 6 to 8 days. So, and then when there's not but 12 to a group, I think I'm right about that, 12 to a group in the Muddy Sneakers. And so there's, most classes have 29 in fifth grade, Scott, something around that.
We allotted 1 to 30, so there could be classes with that number.
Okay, 30 kids, so that means there's gonna be 2 or 3 groups there. And when the teacher brings them back, usually teachers are taught that you go back over and debrief and you talk to the kids about what they've learned and stuff. And these kids are not having the same learning that day, and because they have different groups and different things are being taught to that day. And so, you know, I have a problem with that, because Where's the continuity of it? And then my other thing is that I would like for us to cut maybe Muddy Sneakers down some days. I know that would kill you guys to have to take out some of your stuff, but if it was 2 or 3 days, and then if I would like to suggest we take the outdoor ed down to maybe 4th grade, where we're not taking those 5th graders out of their class again. And so, you know, I know that the Muddy Sneakers probably helps the science scores, but these kids have English and math scores from 3rd grade to 8th grade. And so, you know, that's the angle I'm coming from, is that it really worries me that they're taken out of the classroom for so many days and taken away from especially the reading and the language arts.
And if I may just speak to a couple of points there, I appreciate you advocating on that front. A couple elements there. Certainly, experiential learning across the board, Muddy Sneakers or otherwise, we recognize its value to support ELA standards and math standards, and this specifically does. When you think about ELA being beyond just physically reading, even though there is physical reading involved, communication skills and otherwise, how important. We recognize the integration between all content areas and the value of the integration, not exclusive of those areas. And exactly as you mentioned, 5th grade is when science is assessed at the exact same weight and level as ELA and math. In addition to that, we've already thought through that part, and I'm glad you brought it up, about the balance of outdoor education being extended into 4th grade, and already making that transition ourselves.
Okay.
Because we want to value every moment of instructional time, but we definitely see how all those pieces play together. It's just like I think of field trips sometimes. Going to the symphony might not feel like a direct connection to the student experience, but we know that it is. We know that sending our students to understand the way that the arts celebrate how math operates in real life is a meaningful use of their time when they're there.
6 days.
We're not, but we teach science every single day. We don't not teach science. It is part of the 5th grade experience. No student says half my day's ELA and half my day's math, and we're not doing social studies and we're not doing science. When you're in the 5th grade, you're getting all of those subjects every day. And so to dedicate that resource in that way, we recognize there's an integrated value. So every time we make those choices, they're important. But I do want to affirm for the board this idea of how we've taken outdoor ed, and we're not eliminating outdoor education. We're actually using it as a perfect little diving board by moving it into 4th grade beginning next year. So I appreciate those comments, Ms. Case.
And if I could interject, having taught elementary education, many different grades for many different years, we don't just have 2 subjects. We know that everything scaffolds on each other. So if we're not teaching science building up to when they get to the middle school years and the high school years, we haven't provided them with any of the background or prerequisite knowledge that they need. So I know in my day, science was included, math was included, history, of course, was included, language arts, obviously physical education, but you could achieve those science goals through a program like Muddy Sneakers because you come back and you could write about the experience. You're doing math. I mean, they showed a video, I think, when we were here. There's math going on in science all the time. So since we're responsible for teaching all those subjects, I think that Muddy Sneakers is a huge help to our 5th grade teachers, and I'd love to see in 4th grade as well, to teach other objectives other than just science. I don't think you could drop a kid into a biology classroom in 9th grade having not had all of those experiential learning opportunities in
I'm
grades
not saying that the
7.
teachers don't teach science when they're back in the classroom. I'm just saying that those teachers know where they are in teaching the specifics that they have to teach for the testing and whatever. And I have a real problem with the reading and the language arts not being taught with those specific things that's going to be tested for Amy Lynn's children, for Blair's children, and whoever.
I'll be honest, I'd rather my kids be outside than be worried about sitting in a classroom for a test any day of the week.
Well, yeah, but are they getting the reading and the math?
I think, like Dr. Bryant said, I think it all kind of works together. In my opinion. I know my kids are fired up when they can go outside and have a field trip. They're not too fired up about sitting there. Absolutely.
You know, and I'm hearing all this, you know, but I have volunteered for Muddy Sneakers. I mean, I have done it, you know, and I went to my a little Charlotte's Elementary over at Atkinson, and we didn't have any problem with this. I mean, muddy sneakers didn't come up. Now it's come up, and it's come up because of this survey.
Right.
That's how I see this. I mean, last year we didn't have a problem, the year before we didn't have a problem, the year before we didn't have a problem, but now we do. Why? Well, the survey. Okay. So I go back and what Ms. Holt said, and I think Blair said as well, is it possible, what I don't want to see is the survey coming from Panorama. What I don't want to see is a survey coming from Muddy Sneakers. What I'd like to see is a survey coming from the admin on behalf of Muddy Sneakers, from the admin on behalf of Panorama. Because I don't want to, when something goes wrong in a survey, when my emails start lighting up and I see all this stuff, I want to look to one of y'all and say, what's going on? I don't want to say, where's Panorama? I don't want to have Chuck McGrady have to come in here and defend Muddy Sneakers. I want to look at us and say, what did we miss? So is it possible that the admin get all the whatever, and y'all go through it, and you'll say, this is okay. And this is a survey from the admin on behalf of whatever, and we've gone through that filter. And that way I would be comfortable with any survey because I trust our admin, and our admin are for the best of our students in Henderson County.
Yes, sir. I really appreciate that. No, I think it is, Mr. Egoff.
Okay,
I'll
great.
give you an example. No one can conduct research in the school system without Dr. Fry's approval. We have a policy for that. Everybody knows that if you want to conduct research because you're a graduate student or otherwise, or you're going through your coursework, you are required. Very rarely does that even get approved, right? Research studies, because that requires parent notifications and communications and otherwise. And envision a world where, just like you said, and I'm just giving an example, the guideline is the only survey that can be sent out to students comes from Dr. Fry's office.
But why was the survey sent without her permission?
Well, I think that's the answer to the question, Mr. Bridges, is that no survey should be sent without administrative permission. And
But it needs to come from the admin.
yes, sir, but imagine a training that says no survey will be administered unless it comes from X. So that there is a singular point of contact.
Yes.
Whether that be DPI or a partner agency or the Board of Education or some member of the community. Because Ms. Holt is right. We have so many different partners.
Yep.
And who have historically sought valuable information for the right reasons. But we have a responsibility to vet and approve all of that. And just as we talk about, when we review those kinds of things, to create a structure in place that says to every teacher, I'm not pushing send on this, and to every parent, I'm not pushing send on this unless it's been approved by a specific point and a specific point of contact. I believe that expectation can be met.
Let's make sure that we get this drafted up by our August meeting, and let's make sure that Mr. Garrett is fully apprised of everything that this board expects as far as surveys go.
Yes, sir, we'll do so.
Any other questions, comments, concerns on this? Moving on. Next up is new business A, current face covering guidance and policy. We're going to pair this with the return to learn. You ready to rock, Dr. Bryant?
Yes, sir, I am. And I am really excited to tell everyone that this has been required by statute, and that statute expires this month. So this is the last of those requirements. Again, I will not belabor the data, but I will just share with you what we've seen recently in the trend data. This is what we utilize. I'll make it short and sweet. There has been no additional information other than to what we track right here. You can see the county alert system that we've talked about in the past, and specifically what that looks like for us in Henderson County right now. It is the recommendation of the leadership team and myself that we make no changes. And why that's important to understand that is because we did start summer learning today. So while we're not necessarily talking about the upcoming school year per se, our 2 year-round environments start in July, and our summer learning, this would be applicable. So it's our recommendation that the face covering guidance stay exactly as it is, and that is optional for staff, students, families, and visitors.
Can you tell me real quick, when does summer learning start?
Yes, ma'am. I believe it started today.
Yes.
Dr. Fry?
Today, okay.
I will show you in the equity update the exact starting dates for all things summer learning this summer.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the continuation of the current face covering guidance as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
voice vote, okay. Mr. Bridges, yes or no? Ms. Case? Ms. Holt?
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Caskey, Dr. Revis, yes or no?
Yes,
That's
yes.
7-0. All right, next, resolution authorizing the chairman to execute contracts and options for the acquisition of property and memoranda thereof.
Thank you. I get a new billable rate for this one. I'll be playing
know,
the part of
right?
Chris Campbell for a second.
Sounds like an attorney.
That's right, yeah. In short, the board sees this every year at this meeting. What is this resolution? This is a board-required resolution so that the board actually gives the chairperson the authority to engage in property discussions on behalf of the board. Of course, no property approvals or transactions can occur without full board approval, but each and every year in the summer, we approve this because we don't meet in July. And in the event that there is any property negotiation or discussion, this gives the board chair and the superintendent the opportunity to exercise that. And if there are any questions, I will email them to Chris and have him respond to you.
Questions? I'll take a motion.
I move that the board adopt the resolution to allow the chairperson to execute contracts and options for the acquisition of property and memoranda thereof.
Second.
Mr. Bridges, put your thing on, please. Yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Holt?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Rudolph?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Caskey? Dr. Rose?
Yes.
Yes, and that passes. All right, next up, AIG plan.
Good afternoon, board members. It's my privilege to present to you two plans that have been developed by members of the instructional services team, and they are with us tonight. To my right, Ms. Caroline Patterson and Mr. Scott Moore. And we will begin this evening with the academically and intellectually gifted plan. First of all, just a little background information. So North Carolina has governed gifted education since before I was born, 1961. It's been a while. In 1996, new legislation for gifted education in 96 was passed, which provides a state definition for AIG students, and it mandates certain things such as identification and services for K-12 gifted education. This new legislation requires districts to develop 3-year AIG plans to be approved by the local school board. That's why we're here tonight, and then subsequently sent to the Department of Public Instruction. In July of 2009, the state board adopted 6 AIG standards with sets of practices that clarify each standard. They describe what the LEA should have in place and guide us to improve our programs. All standards and practices, I'm happy to tell you, were addressed in our AIG plan, addressed thoroughly, I might add. I hope you found that to be the case as well when you read it.
82 pages.
Yes, sir, 82. Thank you, Ms. Patterson. During the school year 2021-22, stakeholders met and revised the plan for 2022 through 2025. Remember, this is a 3-year plan that follows state legislation while also meeting the needs of our local students. Each of the 45 practices, that's why it took so many pages, Mr. Craven, in the AIG plan is addressed through an explanation of what is currently done in our county and what's planned for during the next 3-year span. Some highlights of our plan, I hope you found, were, first of all, updating the pathways to identification, and this will allow students more opportunities to be identified. And I think you'll remember that last year, Ms. Patterson and her leadership were recognized by the Department of Public Instruction for doing such new pathways as were continued to be outlined in this plan. The continuation and strengthening of the nurturing program in the kindergarten through 8 grades, especially looking at individual school demographics, continued support in STEM and STEAM-based opportunities at all schools, and then revising the AIG Google Classroom for use by all AIG teachers to bring continuity of services to our programs. So these AIG program standards help ensure that the needs of our AIG students are met and they are well met in Henderson County. And the potential of these students are being served and developed. This plan, this 3-year plan, is designed to work within our instructional framework. So it's not something separate and apart, but it is embedded in what we know to be true about instruction while meeting the needs of our local AIG students. I'm bringing this plan here tonight for your approval and would welcome any questions you might have. I have my resident expert to my right.
It's a lot to chew on.
It's a lot to chew on. Yes, sir.
But what it reflects. Because it's a lot to chew on, though, this is a place where I think we tip our cap to Ms. Patterson, her leadership,
Absolutely.
and the importance of service to our kids at this level. It tells you how comprehensive and complex and deliberate the service to our students is. And so I think this is one of those that we really need to give Ms. Patterson a tremendous amount of credit and say thank you to her leadership for our students in that program. So thank you, ma'am.
Sure. Absolutely. And the AIG program has been phenomenal. My daughter is in the AIG, and she loves it. Now, it's a closet at her school. Maybe we can work on space at some point in time, but it's...
We have a plan for that.
I know, we do have a plan for that, just see what happens. But anyways, it really builds... you can just see how much she talks about it and how much she really feels empowered, I guess you could say, by the AIG program and going and taking those classes and doing the math and the reading. And it's been wonderful, so thank you.
I'd be remiss without saying it is a dynamite group of teachers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And I think it's so important, we always worry about the kids that have learning disabilities and are falling behind. But if we don't have this plan, we're not doing our top achievers any justice by
stifle
not
their growth.
pushing, by pushing them beyond what they're getting in the classroom. It's super important.
Amen.
My kids have never been in the AIG program.
It's not
I'll
because
just
of me, it's
let
because of
you
my
know
wife.
that.
It's my wife.
They're
All right.
cute, though.
They are, yeah.
May I
All right,
just ask
Tia?
one question?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Dr. Fry, if you could, or Mrs. Patterson, could you kind of give us an overview of what we have done to update those pathways to identification to allow more students opportunities to be identified?
Come on down.
Dr. Revis, I'm going to ask Ms. Patterson to speak specifically to that, and I appreciate your question.
And I'm sure she can. She's been up to her elbows in this plan, I'm sure, for many months.
Hi, Dr. Revis. This really is a big continuation of the 2019 plan. I don't want to go into it too much because you've heard it over and over, but COVID really interrupted what we had planned to do starting in 2019 with the last 3-year plan, where we expanded the pathways. Prior to that, it was very much you had to have this, and this, and there was really no variation from that. And so what we found is that we were missing kids who were maybe within 1 or 2 points of a certain score or a certain percentile or a scale score. So what we did was expand. Instead of just having maybe like a 96 percentile on achievement and aptitude, we opened that up to look at 2 years worth, maybe 94 or 95th percentile, and additional portfolio statements, behavior scales, an opportunity even for students to speak about their work to teachers, and more teacher input, and also parent input. So we really have tried to expand, especially that portfolio option for maybe EL kids or twice exceptional kids, for them to show more than just a test score.
And I like that because there are a lot of kids out there that are extremely bright that may be very bored with sitting there in the classroom doing whatever. And we need to make sure, because I was one of them, to identify those kids that aren't necessarily acting out because of whatever. Maybe they're just bored, and they need some enrichment, and they need to be pushed. They need a challenge or else you're going to continue to have those problems, right?
We've also worked with our EL director, Ms. Wertenberger, about looking at different ways that we were missing, looking at EL students, Hispanic students, since they are such, we have so many in our schools, and we felt like we were missing some. So we look at things like, we took her expertise and working with those EL teachers, like a student who scores high on one of maybe their WIDA score, the writing or the speaking, or a newcomer who comes and guess what? They're already speaking after their second year only in American schools. That tells us something. That tells us that that child is advanced, and we need to find a way to work with them, even if language is a barrier.
Absolutely.
Things like that.
Awesome. Dr. Revis, anything else?
No, thank you, Mrs. Patterson, and I do like giving some other options and alternatives to that just real hard and cut score on the standardized assessments. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Any other
All right.
questions?
With that, I will take a motion if there's no other questions. Yes, sir.
I move that the Board of Education, Henderson County Board of Education, adopt and approve this 2022 to 2025 AIG plan.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, Mr. Egoff won. All right. Mr. Bridges, yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Case?
Yes.
Ms. Holt?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Egoff?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Kowski?
Yes.
Dr. Revis?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you very much,
Thank
ladies.
you.
Ms. Patterson's pretty phenomenal herself, as you
Well-
already know.
Looks like Dr. Fry's up again.
I am. I think I'm here for a couple more.
You are. So this one is CTE, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's
Another amazing program with some phenomenal teachers. Let's now talk about the Career and Technical Education Plan with the adoption of the Perkins 5 federal legislation. You've heard about that for a few years now. Districts are obligated to conduct what's called a CLNA, a comprehensive local needs assessment. It is an in-depth look. Every 2 years required to do that in order to inform the CTE application, which is a 2-year plan. So this CLNA, Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment, was conducted during the 2021-22 school year, and it involved a whole lot. Let me tell you a little bit about that. CTE staff gathered feedback from a lot of stakeholders to include and determine the effectiveness of CTE programming in 6 major areas. And those areas are student performance, labor market alignment, program size, scope, and quality, progress toward implementing a series of pathways, appropriate career pathways of study, recruitment, retention, and training of CTE teachers, and finally, equal access to CTE for all students. That's what this plan is about. Using information from the CLNA process, the application for the 2022-23 school year was created, and some highlights from this plan, and it was a lengthy plan as well, I'm sure you noticed, included these things. A systematic approach to every 6th grader in the district, completing a career interest inventory on virtual job shadow. That has to be done in middle school. A focused effort to increase communication about the myriad work-based learning opportunities available to our students. We don't want any families to say, I didn't know that was an option for my child. An intentional and focused effort to increase the number of students earning post-secondary workplace credentials. That is money in their pockets. A focused attempt to return to pre-pandemic proficiency levels in math. An intentional effort to increase non-traditional enrollments within our CTE programs, and then finally, a redoubled effort to recruit CTE teachers more reflective of our student body. This application, I am proud to present to you, reflected the data analyzed and the needs assessed in Henderson County Public Schools, leading our graduates to being more prepared and informed as they enter the workforce or post-secondary education. And I might also add that I am quite confident our local employers would be proud of this plan because it will affect their future workforce. We're happy to entertain any questions that you might have. And I also have Mr. Scott Moore with me to my right.
Looked like he was slacking, only 65 pages, Mr.
Mr. Moore.
Hey, the print on some of this was
It is-
like
it is smaller
so
print.
hard.
It was the font.
I'm like zooming in.
It is smaller print. Questions?
This is so exciting. I love CTE.
I think, as we all know, CTE is going to be more and more prevalent, more and more important to schools, not only here, but across the nation, I believe, in integration with our community college system and university systems and our manufacturers and all the folks that we're bringing into town. And so this is clearly going to be something important and really going to have a pretty huge trajectory going forward. So, questions, comments, concerns?
I just say nice work, Dr. Fry and Mr. Moore, and I know you had a collaborative team. It was a team effort putting this together and many, many months of hard work, but thank you. Very comprehensive.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Revis.
All right, I'll take a motion if someone's ready.
Go ahead, you go.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the 2022 to 2023 CTE local plan.
That was
Second.
second. All right, Mr. Brady, yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Holt?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Egoff?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Skowski?
Yes.
And Dr. Revis?
Yes.
7-0. Thank you very much. Next up,
It's me.
Lego.
One more. Yes, so we have a sole source request that we are bringing to your attention. It is for our Summer Bridge program. So as a reminder, and I'll do an overview of summer learning during the equity update, but Summer Bridge is for our transition programs from so students that are rising middle school students or rising high school students, rising 6th, rising 9th grade students. We have a specific fund source. It's PRC 176, and it's an ESSER fund that is targeted specifically for this program. So we are requesting that you allow us to work to purchase through Legoland Education a robotics kit called Lego Education Spike Prime Set.
That sounds cool.
It does sound cool, doesn't it? I was looking up all about it online.
Very cool.
So it gets even cooler. It uses Lego bricks, a programmable multi-port hub, and coding language based on Scratch and STEAM learning units. So what I love about this, I think you will like this as well, is we are purchasing a kit for every 2 students. But the good news is, after Summer Bridge, they live on and can continue to be used at their school sites. So this is a multi-use resource. Our goal is to use these to engage students regardless of their learning level and thinking critically, analyzing data, and solving complex problems together on a team with real-world relevance. Again, 1 kit for every 2 students, reusable.
So when it's reusable, is there any costs, like ongoing maintenance, any?
We think there's 1 set of copper wire that we'll have to replace, but super minimal compared to the overall cost of the kit.
I just always know the board is very cautious about okaying. It's great that the money's there now, but we know that the money won't always be there, and we want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a position where we need to go to the commissioners and ask for, okay.
This is not a resource that is required for any of our instructional programs to be implemented. It will just be a wonderful supplement to what we're already doing.
It's, it's expensive, $63,000. It's no joke. I about choked my son wanted me to get him a Millennium Falcon Lego, and it's like $475 too. Legos, we're doing okay.
Yeah. I've probably spent a cumulative of that between my
I've
kids.
stepped on that penny worth.
Yeah.
Dr. Fry, what I
They
think
hurt.
is
they are embedded in my feet. Any questions?
Dr.
comments?
Fry, if I could say something, what I think is so exciting about these types of instructional tools is that the Bridge program, I think, is kind of designated for children who may have some issues in transition to the next grade level for whatever reason. And I think it's so cool that we're bringing in these higher order thinking and technology for children who may not be quite on grade level. You know, it just says volumes about, we believe all children can think critically. We believe all children should have exposure to the technology that some of our gifted children maybe only get. So I appreciate this so much.
Thank you, Dr. Revis.
All right. Anybody else? I'll take a motion.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve Lego Education as a vendor under the sole source exemption guidelines.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bridges, yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Case?
Yes.
Ms. Holt?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Egoff?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Kowski?
Yes.
Dr. Revis?
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Fry.
Thank you.
All right. Carl Taylor, your turn. Inter-unit student transfer agreements. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, board members. Hope you're doing well today. The first item I have for you this evening are the agreements between our district and Polk County and Rutherford County. For the Rutherford County agreement, that's the one that permits students that live in that Lake Lure, Bat Cave area to attend Edneyville, Apple Valley, or North Henderson High School if that is what the family deems is in the best interest based on the location where they live. The Polk County agreement is for the Saluda area, where students that live in that area and are in the Saluda Elementary School District, that they go to that elementary school potentially, but ultimately when it gets to middle school and high school, if their family believes that Flat Rock Middle or East Henderson High School are the better choices based upon the proximity and the location where they reside, that again, they have the opportunity to attend those schools and be treated as in district. So at this time, I'll take any questions that you may have regarding these agreements.
How long have we had these agreements going?
For as long as I can recall.
Right, for
Yeah.
dozens and dozens and dozens of years, right?
They've been in place since I was with the school system, so at least 16 years.
Right.
Yes, sir.
All right, questions? Pretty standard. Take a motion.
I move that the agreements for inter-unit student transfers, Polk County Saluda section and Rutherford County Bat Cave Lake Lure sections be approved as presented.
Second.
All righty, Mr. Bridges, yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Case?
Yes.
Ms. Holt?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Egoff?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Kowski?
Yes.
Dr. Revis?
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, revised flex calendar.
Yes, board members. This evening, I'm bringing back the Flex calendar to you as a revised calendar. Once you all approved this calendar a few months ago, we submitted it to DPI for their approval, and they returned it to us with the note that the intercession in between Q3 and Q4, so the intercession there in March, did not meet the requirement that the vacation period for students be between 14 and 18 days. When I counted the weekends, it did meet that, so I called for clarification and was told that weekends are excluded within that count, that the 14 to 18 days needs to include only the weekdays or what would have been student days. So the revision to this calendar so that it meets that requirement of 14 to 18 days has made March 21st and 22nd teacher work days. So that gets the expectation of 14 vacation days in there and for that intercession. It also adds back a student day to January 2nd so that Q3 also meets the requirement of 43 to 47 instructional days. So at this time, I'll take any questions that you may have about these revisions.
So we had the 2nd off of January.
Yes, sir. So
We
that
didn't
was
add
a
any
teacher
other-
work day.
But we didn't add any other days.
No, so that'll, at this point now, this calendar will meet the requirements for the hours for the entire calendar, but it also makes sure that the intercessions meet the vacation periods and that each quarter meets the number of instructional days as well.
Where, how many hours is this calendar?
Each of our elementary calendars exceed the requirement by almost 100 hours.
Oh.
Yes, sir. So we're operating on 1,025. That most closely, what's closest there are our high schools based on schedules that are different than elementary. But in terms of instructional contact time, it's well above the hourly requirement.
Why would we move January 2nd to a student day then?
Again, to make sure that it's also meeting the requirement of 43 to 47 instructional days within that quarter.
Okay. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I'm on that calendar.
Yes,
I
and
object.
just for the, yeah, I know, just for the board's clarification, Mr. Taylor is kind enough to not share with me. We had previously submitted calendars that were always approved by the Department of Public Instruction. If you remember, just 2 years ago, the General Assembly further defined what a year-round calendar is. So much so that they gave those daily totals. And as he mentioned, they will not allow weekends to count. And so while we would love for everybody to come back at the same time, this is the only way to actually meet that requirement. And this is the first time that a calendar's ever been sent back to us. And we were told it had to meet the statutory definition.
Why the half day at the end?
It's been our practice to have half-days at the end of the quarters or the end of the
I
semester.
mean, mainly the end of the year,
Yes, sir.
just because we've done it.
Historical practice. Yes, sir.
Historical practice.
I would say that from a high school perspective,
Yeah, high
having a
school's
half day.
different than elementary.
Yeah.
I mean, none of our high schools are on this calendar, so.
No, but on the others, it's helpful for graduation.
Yeah, to get them all squared
Prepared.
away and all that. I mean, all it is the movie day, right? Like the survey. What movie do you want to watch on your last day of half day? But whatever.
No one will be asking that question without
Yeah.
Dr. Fry's.
Please, please.
Let everybody know.
Well, now, I think that's a poll.
A poll, okay.
That's a little different.
Yeah, well then,
Teachers can
I
ask
can
what
hear the
movie
next
they
thing.
want.
Polls are coming.
We don't want to micromanage.
Okay, I didn't mean to bring that back up.
Yeah,
That's
come on
my
now,
bad.
Blair.
I will take a motion.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the revised 2022-2023 flex calendar begrudgingly.
Second is Mr. Egoff. Mr. Bridges, yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Case?
Yes.
Ms. Holt?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Egoff?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Caskey? Dr. Rose?
Yes.
All right, passes.
Wait, before we go
Whoa, whoa,
on,
whoa, whoa, whoa.
there was I texted you, Miss Holt, there was a county in Western North Carolina
Oh, yeah.
that,
Rutherford. They're getting what's coming to them, I've heard.
so what is coming to them?
I don't know. The General Assembly were going after them, weren't they?
I have had conversations with former state senators about that. I think we made the right decision at that particular time. Let's just leave it there.
But but what has been done?
Nothing as of today.
Okay.
All right, next up is contracts in excess of $90,000. This is an annual deal with Mr. Bernie Sosha.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Board. Have a list of 7 contracts that meet the definition of being potentially over $90,000 and per board policy that needs to come to you for approval. I'll talk briefly about each one. If you'll notice, the way that they're presented, I just gave you the cover sheet for all of them at the beginning, and then all the details are in the back, should you want to go. And I tried to get as much in as Ms. Patterson and have 94 pages, so. Although I think she put a lot more work into hers than, there's a lot of legal stuff in the contract. The first one is the Helping Hand Developmental Day Center. That is from the Exceptional Children Program to provide, they provide special funds for children with disabilities to provide preschool funds for those students that are in need of such services. That is hopefully going to be entirely all state funded for that. The next one is CDWG. That is the $1.5 million worth of Chromebooks. If you recall back last month, we talked about the plan for our ESSER funds, and this was one of those items where we had 2 times we would be ordering Chromebooks. This is $1.5 million. This will be the first time to do that. So this is where we have identified use of ESSER funds to make that possible. And we bid that out to a formal level because it was $1.5 million. So we had to send that out to bid and not use any of the state contracts for that. The next one is for Clarity. That is, again, the EC department for a sign language interpreter. And the value of the contract is, it meets the level to be reported to you guys for approval, although it is only as a potential. We're not saying that we are going to spend that, but we needed to get a contract should we need the services.
Do we not have staff, so I know we teach sign language, but they're Blue Ridge Community College staff members, correct? Why would we go with an outside agency to do that,
This is someone to follow a student along
to follow them
Yes,
along?
This is for an individual student, yes, sir.
so that they could translate for the teacher.
Continue.
Sharing the warmth,
It
that is
Cost you so much though?
I know.
more ESSER funds for PPE as a potential. We bid this out to the fullest extent that we possibly could with the potential, given the COVID pandemic that we had. And so should we need to purchase more PPE this year, this is to allow us to continue to do that. At the time, we believe that we have a lot of supplies in hand, but we needed to extend that contract one more year just in case we need to make more purchases in the upcoming year. I'm going to skip down to inkjet just because they're the same thing. They are for disinfectant wipes, again, more different PPE, but we bid those out to the fullest extent so that we could make a purchase should we need to buy more. Again, we have a supply currently, but as the contract is expiring, we needed to renew it for another year so that we can buy some next year should the need arise. And I'll skip back up, Beata, that is nursing services. Again, for individual students that require nursing services, we will use Medicaid funds as needed to provide that service. And the last one, speaking of Medicaid, is PCG. They are the company that we contract with to do our Medicaid billing, and that is about $120,000. The contract in place here is just $67,000, but combined, we're talking about $180,000 for the year. And if you have any questions about any of them, I'll do the best I can.
And nobody else sends out any surveys of how they did or anything.
They would not go through my office if they did.
Okay. Questions on any of these? All right, we'll take a motion.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the attached contracts with the specified vendors.
Second.
Okay. All right. Mr. Bridges, yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Case?
Yes.
Ms. Holt?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Egoff?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Caskey?
Yes.
Dr. Revis?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now this one, all right, child nutrition meal prices, Mr. Robert Rolfe.
This is our National Child of the Year,
Of the
Mr. Robert
year.
Rolfe. Right, that's correct.
Welcome, sir. No, I turned it off.
I may be number one in the nation, but I was last on the agenda. The summary of request, I hope you've all read. It lays out the need to raise our school lunch prices this year in line with all our surrounding districts. We don't like to ask this, but a new economic reality has struck, and in the hopes of keeping our program aloft and healthy, we are requesting this price increase for the coming year.
The biggest concern I have, and I think a price increase is needed. I still think it's you can hardly buy a Snickers bar for the price that we charge for lunch. But I'm worried when the federal dollars do run out. What does that look like? Just like with our child care program, we weren't doing that well, and it was buoyed a lot by those federal dollars, and now we're on better, even ground. I want to know, on your own volition, with these prices, with the free and reduced that you're going to get reimbursed for, will they I don't want to make money on the meal services, but I don't want to lose money. Are we going to break even with these prices that you're?
Yes, these price increases would reflect, at this point, the actual cost of preparing the meals. And that cost is all the food, supplies, all the labor and all the benefits included. So we do expect a slight increase, but that is planned into these price increases. We are in a very healthy spot coming up to the end of the year. Thanks a lot to federal government, extra money that's been handed out. We do not know at this point what our reimbursement for next year is. A great article I just read, National School Lunch Programs in limbo, and that's exactly where we're at. We do not know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We are assuming we are going back to previous operations, charging for meals with a lower reimbursement rate than what we've been enjoying, especially the last year.
Yeah, I think that's just important, just to make sure you guys are looking ahead as well, so that we're not getting behind the eight ball and starting to kill your reserves that you guys have built up over the years. Like I said, I don't want to make money on it. Do not want to lose money on it. The second, when does the USDA, when are they supposed to make their decision? Do we know? September, August?
They continue to move the ball, and I have only seen, we don't know, we don't
We
know.
don't know,
we
right?
know.
And so
I
we're
have
going to
not
start the
seen-
school year really not knowing.
Right now, we're making the assumption that all of it expires at the end of this month, and they've given no indication otherwise.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's very little hope of continuation of the current
Yeah.
situation, and we are anticipating going back to previous
God forbid
school lunch program operations.
Yeah, God forbid we feed all of our kids lunches and breakfast that need it. I want to make sure that we go back and look at that second chance breakfast program that we had started, that seemed to be very popular, seemed to help with a lot of our reimbursements. If we can do that when, or if the Band-Aid gets ripped off here the next little bit.
I'll tell you, I think that these price increases are more than fair. When I first started reading this, and I was reading down that food's almost $1 million more, $800,000 more, and then the 10% with the labor, and then, they're thinking 7.5 next year, I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna be charging $4 for breakfast. And I mean, it was just 3 cents, and then, what was it, 6 or 4? 6 cents for lunch. I mean, I don't think we're gonna hear parents complaining, I mean, it's not the jump. You go to Chick-fil-A and get a meal, and it's like $17, $18 right now. So, I mean, this is more than fair.
I agree.
Did you have a lot of kids this year that couldn't pay what they had not paid? Sometimes y'all have that.
Well, we've been feeding all meals universally free for the past 2 years. So the whole, what had become the grand topic of meal charges in schools just vanished. We can look at that again next year, I'm sure. And we've been pretty fortunate in our county to never have very high charges. And we've had gracious output from the community and donations. Just about every school has some larger fund of donated money to help pay for those children.
Yeah, I've had clients personally go and write checks to pay for them.
How about the summer program? Feeding the kids in the summertime.
Summer feeding is always universally free meals for all children aged 2 to 18. And we do that in a variety of ways. We have the Meals on the Bus program. We reach out to the community. We have some open sites at various schools where families can come to those sites and receive meals. And then we do provide meals to all of the learning programs throughout the summer, and those are all free.
Okay, so I'm gonna say it last month, I'm gonna say it again this month. We need to be aggressive about getting those free and reduced forms filled out. We've got to figure out how to get parents to, I don't know, I'll donate Chick-fil-A biscuits or something for these parents so that they'll fill them out, because it affects everything in our schools. We got to figure that out.
Yes, and then I'll open it.
And I would really credit Ms. McGowan Gorsuch and Mr. Rolfe and the team at Child Nutrition. We are already having strategic conversations about how, that we know that that's going to be critically important, not just in communicating meal price changes, but also understanding there hasn't been an incentive, if you will, to fill that paperwork out for the last several years. And so just to kind of dovetail to like Mrs. Case's question, it's been free. And so we know that that's going to be important because it isn't just about child nutrition. That's a driver for a lot of other school funding. So we will be very intentional about that work.
We used to send that out electronically as well, right?
Yes,
We
it's
ever sent,
electronically
we started
available.
that, didn't we?
And we've been really promoting that, started about 3 years ago. Really been promoting it over and over. And it has increased every year, the usage of that.
If we can work with maybe our IT folks to, like, I don't know, put it on the app or something to, so when they're coming in there for kindergarten registration, they can pull up their phone and boom, 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 done. Because the problem is that first 2 days of school, you get like 18 things for your kids to fill out, right? Or picture day's coming in a week, and this is coming, and that is coming. And if it looks like anything in my kid's backpack, it's a disaster at that point. So if we could have like an app or anything to make it easier for people to fill it out, I think you get more folks maybe doing it, hopefully.
And we do have, in schools where we know there's a good need, we typically coordinate with principals, and we'll have a number of computers set up during those orientation days where they can come and fill those applications up right there. And the only issue there is they do need some information with them where they may not have.
I feel like we could do that through
That's the only thing, but we have had good results, and I think we just do need an extra push this year because there have been 2 years of we don't have to do it.
Maybe we can do an ice cream party for the class with, every class with 100%. I'll fund.
Smart Snack approved ice cream.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, then, sorry, we can't have anything good. No.
No, it's good. It's just
It's not sugar.
calorie controlled, you know.
I like sugar.
Dairy has to
Number
be the
one,
first
voters. That's
item,
why
you
it's number
know.
one. No, I think what we would love to share with the board is just the very strategic and intentional ways that that can be done. And you think about like, much like the media release form works, you log into PowerSchool and it alerts you like, you got to do this. You know, and it's almost like, have you done your form? You know, I think that there are some really creative and thoughtful ways. That
Sure, it alerts me like crazy when my kid only has like $5 left in his account. I mean, it just hits me up like email, I mean, all over the place.
Just so you know, I get those notices for you all, so.
I find that high schools have fewer applications to get free meals.
Not significantly, but it does go down as they increase in age groups. But not really significantly. The percentage of free and reduced qualified kids is pretty stable throughout all grade levels. I think the real reason behind that is you start having high schoolers not eating with us anymore. They're saving their money, or they're waiting to eat till after school. So the actual, percentage of the kids participating in the program starts to go down in high school too.
Save money for gas, right?
That's right, yeah.
Well, they're also probably ashamed of having to get it.
Then let's get an app and make it easier for
I
them.
mean,
to
that's
not-
the great thing about universal free meals, you
Yeah.
know. And, one of the things I wrote down is our participation has actually gone up in the last 2 years, and especially this last year. And I just have to attribute it to universally free meals. I know district-wide enrollment's down some over previous years. But our meal service, our meal participation is up, so that's a great thing. And I just, I would promote it to anybody that would listen. Universal free meals in schools, I think that's what it should be, and that has to go to the top. But I think it's a great thing. So.
Well, thank you so much. Any other questions? All right, I'll take a motion, sure.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the school meal prices as presented for the 2022-23 school year.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bridges, yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Case?
Yes.
Ms. Holt?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Egoff?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Kowski?
Yes.
Dr. Revis?
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir.
If you'll excuse me, I have to take my wife out for her birthday dinner.
Oh, it's her birthday.
Let's give him one more round of applause. That's a good I'd like to say I now have something in common with Robert Rolfe. It's my wife's birthday today.
Is it
too. So,
really?
yeah, so we'll meet you wherever you're going. West First it is. Okay, very good.
June is the month of the good birthdays.
No, I would argue it's July.
Ah,
No, June. Remember June.
mine's 2 days.
June 12th. Mine was yesterday.
Was it?
Oh, you
I've got all kind of birthdays. All right. Esser.
Yes,
Let's get
sir,
you out
thank
of here so you can go see Lisa.
I know that poor guy, we made him stay here with his wife on her
I know,
birthday.
She's probably thrilled. That's okay. Yes. No, we'll very quickly want to just go back to something I did not mention, the return to learn, and just remind the board, and a great chance to remind the public. We sunsetted the COVID dashboard, the tracking dashboard on our website when the school year ended. And so we've shared that information. I meant to bring it up as part of the Return to Learn update because it's one of the pieces we've talked about how we communicate with our community in terms of tracking the number of cases and otherwise. But that has been sunsetted. We've taken the icon off our website. We've taken the Return to Learn banner down. All of those things finished with this current school year.
Sweet.
Okay, so ESSA report, again, one that you're familiar with, but because we're in the last month of the year, I do want to just share with you a couple of the pieces that you are already familiar with and also help you have some information that can be referenced when we start talking about the utilization of some of the strategies that we've employed moving forward. Whoops, I went too quickly. One more time. There we go. Highlighted allocations to date, want to draw your attention to the middle bullet, the fourth one down, and then the final bullet there, just as a reference point. This board had approved previously what we called quarantine teacher assistants. They were supporting students who were under quarantine, who had been absent or otherwise. So we had this position allotment moving forward through a 3-year period. We talked about the value of those. Under Dr. Fry's leadership and our instructional services team, we've continued conversations with our staff about how we provide direct interventional support and coordination to students to continue that learning recovery that we've been speaking of. So MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. We're talking about how we serve students, and we had these positions, again, already within,
He came down looking like he was looking for a phone or something, but
Yeah. Maybe just.
Will you just
Scott, will
double check that there's
those
not something
seats
right
and
there?
Make sure that he didn't leave.
And so in conversations with our IST team and otherwise, that line, if you will, has simply been relabeled because those quarantine teacher assistants expired at the end of this year. We had hard stops, as we've talked about. You talk about fiscal stewardship. There's a period at the end of those sentences, so all of those were over. So now moving into the new school year, folks that would step into that role, again, rehired, new individuals or otherwise, are providing direct interventional support and coordination. Dr. Fry, is there anything you'd like to add on that front?
I'd like to recognize Dr. Marcy Wilson for her leadership around our district support of MTSS, and we believe that these positions can be a game changer in response to specific, individualized learning responses, services to students based upon school-based team decisions. So we thank you for your support and allowing us to do this.
And credit again to Dr. Wilson. I know if you're thinking about the summer learning we've referenced a couple of times, if you want to know the tip of the spear, it's Dr. Wilson on that work. And so when you think about what's taking place starting today and then moving forward throughout the summer, we appreciate your leadership on that, Dr. Wilson. The last bullet there, I'm just going to reference what you heard Mr. Socia say. When we met in our board budget workshop sessions, we talked about how do we leverage and utilize our ESSER funds in the places that were non-recurring, that helped us to address the sustainability of our Project Empower initiative and our Chromebook replacements. And so with that approval of that CDWG contract approval, the first of our 3 phases remaining. Phase 1 is about $1.5 million in this current fiscal year out of the ESSER funding, so that has been current. The second is about $1.5 million of ESSER funds again next fiscal year. And then the $300,000 that we received from the Board of Commissioners being earmarked over essentially a 7-year period to acquire that third phase in fiscal 28, I believe it is. Yes. So this is that first element of that. And I know we are always talking about how are these federal dollars being put to use. Again, they've given us a great opportunity to address the device replacement on that front. The next 2 slides are just important for you because the board chairman and the board on whole said we want to track these specific strategies that are related to our hiring and our support for retention, whether it's bus drivers or substitutes or otherwise. You can see through our May payroll, the bus driver recruitment bonus is paid out about $100,000. Substitute teachers just under $75,000. And then on the next slide, again, familiarizing yourself with the class coverage there, down there at the bottom, about $100,000 of a budgeted $790. So ultimately, the board will be able to have continued conversations around each of these strategies moving forward. They are, again, budget approved in our narrative, but can be choose to utilize based on the services of support and the work that hiring is done throughout the off-season and the summer. Glad to answer any questions that you might have. Yes, sir.
What happens to the Chromebooks?
What do you mean? What happens?
Phase 1 of Chromebook replacement.
Yes, sir.
So what happens to the old ones?
So anytime we cycle those out, they're utilized in a couple of different ways, and Mr. McMurray would be perfect to answer this question in the back. But ultimately, what we do is we have some that we determine are no longer usable because, as you heard Mr. Fender say, the operating system isn't supported anymore. It's not updatable by Google. And so we actually can sell those back. They go on like GovDeal and Surplus websites, and we get small amounts of money for those depending on the age and the usability of that device. But they really are. The reason they're so inexpensive at about $300 is because they're designed to last for about 4 years. And then after that 4-year period, they have what we would consider to be minimal or basic use, depending on what's supported. And so, Mr. McMurray, did I well state that? Hey, look at that. I'm telling you. $11. Okay, so we get about $11.
Wow.
And so for most of them, Mr. Egolf, they are declared surplus and then sold. Once about every month or so, we would get information for the surplus sale of those devices.
Now, do we have to pay to ship them to those people? Okay. I wonder what they do with them.
They take out the copper and everything out of them or whatever. What do we have to.
GovDeals.com. Yes, sir.
You told me that.
How much do we have left in this, sir? What's the bottom dollar?
How much do we?
Stumped them.
So there's like 3 answers to that.
Well, there's ESSER 3, I know, is our largest chunk that's left, right?
Yes.
So generally, how much do we have left? Just approximate. 10 million?
Now, I'm going to answer the first part as he goes through this. What we do, we kind of track it in 2 different ways.
Okay.
One is what's already out the door.
Yep.
So we've already pushed out the door a little over $10 million. That's out the door. We have about another $10 million that has a placeholder on it, like that 1.5. And we've got about $10 million that is not assigned to anything.
Beautiful, that's exactly what I wanted to know.
Okay, so that middle 10, though, when you look at those slides, because like you're spending 1.5 and 1.5 and 1.5 on.
Those are allocated.
Exactly, yes, sir. They're roughly allocated, but we haven't written the checks yet.
Sure.
For this school year, 2022, 2023, or over the next?
Till 2024.
Because the thing is, we've got, really 1.5 more years to kind of spend that
Yes, sir.
money.
Correct. Or it turns into a pumpkin.
Okay.
What if we allocated more to the arts and those elementary schools that are losing their music positions because of ADM?
I think, well, that's something that we can certainly talk about. I think the problem with that, or maybe not a problem, is that those become pumpkins as well because those positions are going to go away, correct? So you pay for a position or an allotment for a year or two, and then it's not there, then you're in the same boat. certainly something I'm willing to look at. But we have to remember, just like those nurses and just like the social workers, those are going to become recurring positions that we're going to have to fund
Right.
somewhere.
But to lose that money rather than provide that,
Yeah, I think that's a conversation that we need to have. You know, I know the principals get a lot of leeway to make that decision on what that allocation looks like, and you know, we might be getting off base from ESSER here.
No, I think it's helpful because I think every time we explore that sort of rhetorical dialogue to match the board's priorities, we just have to think about the three ways we were trained. Is it in response to, as a result of, or a preparation to deal with a future pandemic? If it doesn't answer those three questions, it's not generally an eligible expense for our ESSER funds. So when we think about the utilization of all the devices being in their most modern form, they are responsive to all three of those questions. MTSS support, responsive to all of those. Providing, you know, elements that you have approved up into this point, but it's just helpful to think about everything you want to talk about in this arena each month, because it's a healthy space to do it. Can it fund this? Can it fund this? Can it fund this? We get to ask those questions all the time. We just want to be thinking about those three questions.
I think maybe our conversation needs to revolve, and maybe this is something we could look at in August and beyond. What does that look like? Do we want principals that only have one, you know, say 3 specials allocations to say, okay, you're only doing art in the school, or you're doing half the year art, half the year music, or whatever that case may be? Now, we give a lot of flexibility right now, don't we, to our principals to make those decisions, and maybe that's something that we need to look at further.
Yeah, and if I
Maybe
could add
not
to
that
Ms. Caskey, to your point of turning money back in, we're meeting weekly, and we do have things on a list of potentials that we would do, so, but we don't want to spend them too soon so that we're caught without any money at the end, but we do not intend to leave any money on the table unless we can just find nothing that is applicable.
Oh, I believe you'll find something to spend money on. All right, any other questions on the ESSER update? All right, construction update, Mr. Carl Taylor. Welcome back.
Some updates on some of our construction projects that are currently taking place. So again, maintaining tradition, starting with Hendersonville High School as it continues to wind down. First photo here, as you look at the front entrance to Stillwell, some things to highlight from that photo. The entrance to Stillwell has been redone with new concrete to where it is a ramp access, so it is ADA accessible. Also, some of the sidewalk work on the other side of that sign is new concrete as well. If you drive by today, then you will also see that little bit of the construction trailer that's edging out there on the side of the photo, it is gone, as well as fencing, and so that area is being cleaned up. And so again, continuing to wind down in that area. The other photo that I'm presenting to you here is from the event center there on the first floor of Stillwell. You can see the wainscoting that is there on the wall, and there's concession areas that are in that space as well. So they have doors that can be lifted up to open up that concession space as well.
I know that John Bryant didn't have anything to do with this because he wasn't previously in building, so I'm just going to talk to you. They have been amazing to work with. The way that they had the front of that school for move up was phenomenal. I mean, it looks great, and they're a great company to work with. I was extremely happy with, how Edneyville turned out as well, but Edneyville was just a new building. It wasn't all of this craziness they've had to deal with Hendersonville, and you've done a great job.
Yes, I can speak from my experience in the year and a half that I've been in this position, working with Vinoy, working with the county for those events, like you said, moving up ceremony, the senior play. It was always, what can we do to make this be the best that it can be for your students, for your school, for the community? And so, yes, they have been a joy to work with in my time.
I think also LS3P, who's combined with PFA, are they PFA now, or
No.
they're LS3P now, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
you know, they worked with everything that we had. And you speak of the senior play, they had their electricians there in case anything went down, went wrong. They had folks in the back that were ready to, at a moment's notice, fix whatever needed to be fixed for that night. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they've done, and I'm so happy with how this turned out.
Okay. Maybe I should have gave a break. My bad. I'm trying to power through.
I'll move as quickly as
We've
I
got
can.
a little bit left. We don't have much left.
As I've mentioned before, the progress has been from third floor down to second floor, and now all the focus is on the first floor. Pretty much at this time, our maintenance department has gone through the second and third floors to wax those classrooms, to wax some of the hallway spaces as well. Also, at the end of last week, classroom furniture started being delivered, and so those boxes have been moved up to the third and the second floor so that they can be unpackaged and those classrooms set up as well.
It's pretty shocking.
Only question I have.
Yes, sir.
When are you getting the trailers out of there?
This month. So in the coming weeks, they'll be cleaned out as much as we need to get them cleaned out. The ramps and
Power
stairs,
pole and-
powers taken away. So once all that's done, I want to say it's somewhere around the next week is when the gentleman who we've contracted for the moving of those mobiles will come and get them, and out they will go.
Where are they going? Sorry.
They were part of the contract in terms of moving in.
Oh, so they weren't any of ours.
No,
They started as ours, but again, in negotiation of the contract for that gentleman to move them onto the campus and then to take them away, to reduce that price, the contract was when he moves them away, he takes them away.
Seriously?
Absolutely. And we were in the process of eliminating them. Remember, we were just storing.
We were trying to get rid of them at Etowah or.
Correct. We had been removing them from all of our various locations. There were 9 of them at Edneyville. You remember we built those? We were storing them on our maintenance property, which was problematic because
Right.
when they're not conditioned and hooked
Yeah,
up
they
and
start
otherwise.
to go bad.
So to Mr. Taylor's credit in our maintenance department and the team there with the county,
That's a good deal for him, too.
it's a great deal. And so they're not only being hauled off, but not returned to us.
Sweet. We don't ever want them back.
I want to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I went by today and I noticed the grading for the interior courtyard has started. And so
Yes,
they're
sir.
going to start, that should be wrapped up here soon, too, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes,
August 3rd, right?
That's another area of focus. Yes, sir.
All right.
Now, have you guys seen the panoramic photo that Rebecca McCall did of the field? Like, she did that, worked with the guys out there. She explained, that's what she used to do when she worked for GE. You like go to the light poles. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know how it's all done. I'll text it out to everybody. It is super cool.
I went this weekend to the Tom Orr stage dedication that Mr. Craven was nice enough to not be at, so I had to have the opening remarks or something like that.
My apologies. I was with my son.
No, but I did take a second to look around with Mr. Camp Parent, and I hope that didn't get anybody in trouble. But it's amazing that Stillwell looks, and I don't want to make anybody mad, but that Stillwell looks just like the new school. I mean, it's amazing that's that school that we're taking pictures of. It's been there for like 100 years, and it looks brand hammer new.
It's just, I think the best thing, I mean, we all, if you went to school there and whatever, you remember how small some of the classrooms were, especially like Mr. Cottingham's room that's now like, you know, the bridge or whatever. But we've taken 3 classrooms and turned them into 2, and the rooms are so much bigger than what we used to cram 35 people into.
I mean, it looks brand hammer new.
I went to that dedication too, and you did a great job, Mr. Egoff.
That's why we gave it to them.
We got a brand new auditorium, brand new seats, new paint job and all that, but you got a 1947 podium up there. Is anybody gonna order a new podium for that stage?
I'm not
gotta
sure
wait till
anybody
Bobby
would want
retires.
that podium to go
I
anywhere.
think we need to get a new one for it, okay?
Well, let Bobby
Yeah,
decide that one.
We'll ask the principal.
Y'all do that after November 30th when I'm gone. I don't want to feel the wrath of that.
Yeah, that podium's been there a long time, has it not, Mr. Gash? I mean, decades.
Quick rundown of other projects. Again, paving and roof replacement continue to go on as we enter into the summer months. So those will be wrapping up either this month or next month. The auditorium seating projects at Apple Valley North, and of course this space, those projects are complete. The warehouse there at our maintenance area or center, we're still waiting on that metal building to be delivered. The delivery date is the end of this month, and so fingers crossed that that is indeed what does happen this month for that warehouse. For the video management, again, through our MRTS, the focus there initially is at our middle and high schools. So Haynes continues to pull the wire and have everything prepped and ready for when the cameras do arrive. They were ordered in spring, March, whenever that went under contract. But like so many products, it is one of those products that is hard to come by. But they are supposed to be delivered prior to the start of the new school year. And so as soon as they are delivered, Haynes will be prepared to go and put those into place in each of those schools. East and West auditoriums, again, one of the projects there at those two schools is for sound and lighting. And so that work is under contract and is scheduled to begin this month. And then the final one at our last board meeting, contract was approved for stadium work at East Henderson to make the home side ADA compliant. And again, most of that funding is coming from a grant through DPI. And so that work is scheduled to begin this summer as well. And then final updates I have for you. As part of MRTS, again, there is the design for a new bus garage. And so working with the county on that, Clark Nixon has been identified as the architect, and so they are working on their proposal for that design work of a new bus garage. And then the second one is the renovation and addition at West Henderson High School. That is also included in MRTS, and the architect for that work is LS3P. And so again, they will begin working on their proposal to submit to the county as well. So at this time, I will answer any questions that you may have.
I just want to thank you for all the restroom pictures you sent us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I opened them up. I was in Florida last week, and I opened them up on my laptop, and my mother, who's 84, said, "What are you looking at?" I mean, she now thinks I'm a restroom weirdo, but thank you for those.
Well, blame Mr. Craven. He's the one
I
that
will.
requested, some photos,
I
and
think
so
it's
that gives you
important to see
perspective.
that. And
Yes,
then
indeed.
if you look at the number of actual restrooms in the various buildings, I mean, clearly,
Especially Hendersonville.
I mean, it's like a third.
Yeah.
They're like 3.
It is obscene that we would spend $60 million and wouldn't spend another, I don't know, a couple $100,000, $500,000 to actually make those restrooms usable. Makes no sense to me. I know I'm speaking to the choir here, but whatever.
Yeah, I would like to see that done as well. If anything, just the handicapped. I just think it's crazy those people have to go.
Yeah, I think if the county's not willing to do that, we need to look at spending some of our own money to do some minor updates and upgrades to make that, because just the fascia's falling apart, the roof's falling apart, the bathrooms don't have partitions. I mean, it's awful.
Well, okay, so we're talking about it. What are we going to do?
I don't think they can social distance in there. That's probably like an ESSER
So-
thing.
So,
No?
we are to have a facility meeting at some point that encompasses a lot of things. I'm trying to be nice until then.
Okay, but this is going to be,
Part of that conversation, yes, sir.
because it is embarrassing. I mean, first of all, I know, Ms. Case, you're up, but I was looking at it, and I was like, now, wait a minute. I remember you went in, and there was a sit-down on the left, and it looked like it was on the right. And I said, did everything get reversed? But I think that's the way the camera picture took. But anyway, I think there's one place to stand up, and one place to sit down. That's it. 3. And in like North, there was
A bank of them.
10. It looked like an army, and even at some, anyway, we can't do what we did to the school, and then that is pretty embarrassing.
At the next, and I would like you in the next 2 weeks to go ahead and get that on the books. I'm going to bring those pictures along. You'll be with me, so go ahead and have those ready to rock.
We need to share them.
And we'll share those pictures with them.
I mean, we'll look like fools, and they'll say, they did this to school, and then
Well, we tried to. We tried to go with, but no. So anyways, yes. Yes, Ms. Case?
Thanks, Carl. Single entry at Upward, where are we?
So that's still part of the MRTS, and I know that the last thing that the county provided is that they're just waiting to go into a contract, and so that's still working with Carolina Specialties at this time so that it can go under contract, and then the work could begin at that time.
And when might that be?
I do not have an answer, but I can ask for an update prior to our next meeting.
About West High of getting to the bathrooms on the football field, is that a safety problem or anything?
I think
wheelchairs or in?
from an ADA standpoint, yes, the concrete ramp that goes from the home side down to the concession area into the restrooms, that ramp is way too steep to meet ADA compliance. From just a general safety standpoint, here recently our maintenance department worked with the school to tear up the old concrete because it had separated and had become unlevel to where it was a safety issue. So they have new concrete down, but it's still at that same slope. And so from an ADA standpoint, no, it is not safe. But from just a general pedestrian standpoint, it is safe at this point in time.
I know with property tax, income is going to be up a little bit, and I also know that our county will be, I'm saying this carefully, our county will be have plenty of money. They've covered the budget. They're even talking about how to a lower tax rate, returning some of the money. It seems to me that every one of our bathrooms at every school should be ADA compliant, at least. I mean, I don't know how we're not sued, but I guess we're not.
I was just going to ask about that.
But it just seems to me that there's such a push for, equity and equality and fairness and this and that, and we have the money. Why can't we ask the commissioners to make every bathroom at every school in our county, just make sure it's ADA compliant?
Just to speak to a couple elements about ADA and ADA accessibility, because we recently went through a review of all of our campuses in high school. It's about designated signage that you have access to an ADA accessible restroom. It doesn't all have to be the stadium bathroom or otherwise. To your point, anytime you renovate a facility, much like the Stillwell, I'll use the Stillwell as an example, you are required to bring those things up to code. So as was discussed regarding Hendersonville, we requested the funding for the stadium upgrades. It was denied. The board chose a different path forward on that. And so I think through each budget request, it's important to understand what you ultimately are asking the Board of Commissioners for are those types of dollars and that type of funding. And so on every school campus, we have ADA accessible restroom facilities. And you have to be able to access those, whether it's during a ball game or during the school day or when you're visiting or otherwise. Every time we touch a facility, we should be looking at, I know Mr. Taylor and his team are evaluating, so what are the options? And I know that was your question. And I think he wisely recognized, let's look at all the restrooms. Let's make sure you have that clear picture of future capital projects and requests. As an example, and I'll just set this to the side for a minute, we've designated strategic capital in our capital outlay plans. And when you determine you have a new priority, this is how those dollars can be utilized. You may say, you know what? If we don't have any emergency capital expenses and we get to the spring, let's start to tackle some of these things with the dollars that we do receive. And that's what the strategic capital allows you to do. So I think it's a great opportunity to be thinking about those kinds of things and how that's utilized.
I think those are good questions from a future committee member on that facility committee.
I'm in.
Yes, nominated.
Thanks, sir. Dr. Fry, equity update.
None taken. All right, it is my pleasure to speak with you tonight about summer learning. We are calling this Summer Learning 2.0, Summer Learning Double the Fun, and I'll explain that more in just a minute. Remember, last year we were legislated for it to be fun. Well, I can assure you it's going to be fun again this year. Our goals for our summer learning program, and I think I shared some of these with you previously, we want to expand opportunities, and we did apply for the competitive funds that were available for both Summer Bridge and Career Accelerator. And another goal of ours was to increase the community partnerships. We have both increased the number of community partners as well as exponentially increased the number of community activities, or the activities with community partners. And we are doing our very best to intentionally communicate with families about the activities that are taking place and their connections to grade level standards, and working with our schools to that end. And then finally, we knew last year's day was too long. We didn't have a lot of control around that, so this year's day is shorter. So in a nutshell, Ms. Holt, you were asking me earlier in this meeting about dates and programs and when everything started. This is the best infographic kind of at a glance that we have, and this is what we're using with schools and with families to show when our different programs are starting, and so that we don't get lost in what the goals of each program are and the descriptions. They're listed here in bullets underneath each one. A lot of moving parts this summer to greatly affect many students. So our enrollment in 2021, you can see on the left-hand side, and we served 1,957 students. And then with our expansion this year, I am pleased to tell you that we will be serving 2,100 students, and that is not a duplicated count. Those are individual students. You can see the new programs have been added. And then when I told you we were doubling the fun, so in 2021 we had 20 community partners, and thanks to the expert publicity and negotiation skills of Dr. Wilson, we have increased that number to 42 community partners. In last year's summer program, we had 133 opportunities, and this year we have planned 268. Yes, we invite you to join and participate and observe any of those you're interested in doing. We would be happy to share with you that spreadsheet. Some of our community partners, we couldn't fit them all on a couple of slides, but I did want to recognize some of the community partners. And again, opportunities that many of our students may not have had. Bringing them either to the school site or taking our students there, or in some cases, both. And then we have more community partners on this slide as well. And several of these are serving our students in multiple summer learning programs. For example, Zaniac is working in more than one of our programs. So that, in a nutshell, is what's going on this summer. I appreciate your continued support, and couldn't be possible without our ESSER funds, and appreciate your willingness to help us keep our service at the same level as last year and allow us even to go after additional funds to expand it. And I also want to thank Dr. Wilson publicly for her extraordinary efforts to be our point person. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I'm going to hate it when these funds go away and we can't do this anymore.
Oh.
It is, I mean, when you think especially for those kids in elementary school and middle school that their parents cannot take them, you know, they can't get into the boys club and girls club, you know, because they're full or whatever. I mean, this is, they're learning, they're having fun. This is like great stuff.
It really has been a wonderful opportunity. I can't help but, the Pollyanna in me can't help but think that much of this can live on, because I do know that we have community partners who believe in this strongly enough that I still believe that they will play a role in summer learning to the extent that they can.
What is it? Is it $3 million? Is that what it was? The cost for the summer learning that we had in ESSER? Is it 3.3?
It cost us just shy of $4 million the first summer, all in. But remember, we were paying everybody at that accelerated sort of General Assembly statutory rate.
Yeah.
We've expanded this year and are going to spend even a little bit less than that while still incentivizing the pay.
Okay.
Anything else? Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your
Thank you.
support.
Child care update, Mr. Scott Rhodes. Whoa. Oh, no. He's at the bar.
Good evening. So I'll run through this real quick for you. For the child care update for the month of May, our financial projections, revenues of $115,000, expenses of $77,000, almost $78,000, with an operational profit of $37,914.27. Also, just want to kind of give you two real quick updates. Summer Plus, we're serving 125 students on a daily basis. And as you know, the playgrounds that we're working on right now is really the big undertaking that we're working on. Right now, we have a meeting planned for Wednesday, really trying to get organized about the rules about how we can spend these federal dollars, whether or not we can work with a co-op, and really trying to come up with the best plan possible so we can maximize the dollars that we have available to be able to get what we need for our elementary schools. So that's the child care update for May. Any questions?
Once again, you're crushing it.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Financial statements, Bernie?
All right, real quick, just the local current expense, as of May 31st, revenues are basically the same as they were last month. We've already received all our county appropriation as of last month, so no new revenues to speak of, and our expenditures are up to $25,880,000. We're roughly $2.5 million more than we were at this point last year, as expected. And we have $4 million going out the door just for the local supplemental loan this month, but we are on target to remain in budget for the year.
You can write the check.
We can write the check.
I like it. All right, general operations.
Simply, thank you for the kind words today. Thank you for the support that you've provided. Certainly grateful to see everybody at the end of this month, but I can say what I've said to you each and every month. It's an honor and a privilege, and I am grateful to each of you for the opportunity to have served the school system and served the children under our care and serve alongside the staff. So thank you for the support and thank you for the kind words today. That's all I have.
Yeah, before we adjourn and everybody's ready to run out of here, I'm not going to be here on the 30th, and so I just want to say, oh, she left. To Dr. Fry, well, I'll tell her later, but I want to say it publicly. She's a rock star. We are certainly going to miss her here, and I'm sorry I'm not going to be here on the 30th, but to you, and done a bang-up job, man, and we'll miss you. So, without further ado, y'all ready to get out of here? Take a motion.
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Dr. Fry just
Oh, Dr. Fry.
She just came back.
I'm sorry. I was just basically saying that, I'm not going to be here on the 30th, and I just want to tell you how much of a rock star you are, and you followed a rock star, and which she followed a rock star who's listening here, and we are going to miss you tremendously, and thank you for everything and your leadership and everything you provided for us. So, certainly appreciate it. Absolutely. All right, motion.
Yep.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're done.
Bye.
Bye.
Kathy goes, bye.